I'm very excited for this first list we're going to cover from the Lincon 40K GT. This is, I believe, in Sweden, and I cannot read any of this, but what I can read is this says Leviathan Tournament Pack. So shout out for Discord for showing this to me and letting me know right away too. Yeah, this seems told that actually did use the GW terrain, which means I have to eat my words maybe, because the Dread Mob list we're about to cover, which did go 4-0-1, meaning it did have a tie on WTC scoring. Ties are kind of likely, as I believe it's 5 points, and you have to be someone by greater than 5 points to receive the other point to beat them in a differential like 10-9. They split the points like 20 points as a whole. So as someone's winning more and gaining more of a difference, it offsets, and that's how you get these scores. If someone will get 0, the other guy to get 20, something like that, right? So he did have a tie, and we'll of course take a look at his tie. But first, let's take a look at Martin Hultgren's list. So we have a Dread Mob. Right away, I know everyone's excited. This is why I wanted to cover it. So we have 3 Big Meks with shock attack guns, or the abbreviation is a SAG, AG. So if you're new to Orks, that's what people mean when you ever see a SAG. They're speaking of the Big Mek with shock attack gun. So only one of these shock attack guns has one enhancement, and that is the Get Finder's Goggles for ignoring cover. That's the only one I would assume you really need, to be honest. When you choose the one that press it faster, it is nice when you get the 2 benefits you want or don't roll for the same benefit, but in the wording it does say it's activated when you actually roll, so you can't roll one and then choose the other. Therefore you're rolling for both and you're taking risk, and it's quite expensive for the risk. So don't make the package more expensive by doing that. Just put the ignore cover and you feel good. Then we have the Mech, probably escorting a Gorkanaut, or giving someone some love. Let's see. So we have a War Boss in Mega Armor, and we have Zagrat Wartsnega. So Zagrat's making his appearance with his Scout 20-man unit of what do they call the Super Grunts, right? So -1 to wound, -1. They're just +1 to wound when they fight you. They're a weird data sheet when you do call the WAAAGH. They're quite annoying. Great OC, great at stopping alpha striking armies from running in and punching our Dread Mob. But there's also 2 more units of Gretchen, 2 trucks, 1 battle wagon, and 2 units of flash kits. A Gorkanaut and 2 units of 5-man flash kits, by the way. And here we go. The thing I must eat my words for. 3 units of Lootas. So it seems like I was a little wrong, or this is a very exceptional player. We'll see. But 3 Luta bricks coming in on what we assume is a GW format is quite beautiful. I'm a strong believer that one of these was in reserve, and hypothetically the other 2 could be in these trucks. As for, I believe, for this wagon, I would do a SWAT wagon if it was me. And that's just me. We have 3 units of mech guns with smasher guns, and then a unit of storm boys. So what I mean by a SWAT wagon is you could take the 2 5-man units of flash kits, you can put them in the wagon. That gives something for firing deck 11 that it has now, and then you also put mans in there because there are 22 models in there. So you can't get it to the T12 because then it closes off firing deck, so maybe that's not the plan here, but in some matchups that very much could be the plan here. And you can use the flash kits for the volume while your mega knobs go and punch something hard. That's why I think that could hypothetically be one of the combinations. Now if you don't do that, of course the Gorkanaut can hold something in there. You can jump out from the Gorkanaut's belly maybe. You know, you can put them in trucks, like I said, Lootas, or even the big Mega War Boss with Mega Knobs. You could put them in the trucks. But as a whole, I'm a strong believer that he possibly used a battle wagon as a SWAT wagon, all right, which I think is glorious. If you guys know SWAT teams, just take 2 different units, put them in an orc transport, use them to kind of benefit from each other's strengths, right? A flash kit 5-man unit is perfect for SWAT teams as it runs out, it shoots, it fights moderately well against chaff, it's pretty cheap, and then the Mega Knobs don't really like to go out and fight chaff, especially because they can miss, they can whiff, and they really want to go just on their WAAAGH turn, which Dread Mob has to take into account here. So I like that it's a mixed combined arms. One thing I want to say as we go into this is there's no killicans, and I believe that should be brought to everyone's attention. Most people are talking about how it's awesome, but where the killicans at, right? I would love to know why he made this decision. If you guys know this, have him give us a shout out because we'd like to talk to him sometime. I just like to get the understanding of maybe why he didn't feel good killicans. We can all presume it's because they're slow. Their data sheet ability isn't as good as it used to be. And so maybe he just decided I'm going to opt out for it and just let Lootas do a lot of the work. So we'll see what his matchups were going into it, because path to victory is quite important. So let's take a look at Martin's list. And of course, look at the chat, everybody. Whoa, let's go. I'm excited about the Dread Mob. I am very excited about the Dread Mob. So we have a Tyranids Vanguard Onslaught list. So we have a Broodlord, a Death Leaper, a Winged Hive Tyrant. We have 4 units of Gargoyles, that amazing move blocking unit. So if you don't know about Gargoyle, they move, they shoot. As long as they shoot, they can then move again. So because their weapons are assault, they can advance in that first movement. So they're going to move, advance, shoot, and then move again because of their datasheet ability after shooting. So they're great for move blocking Orks. They're great for contesting OC because they do have 2 OC as they are battle line. Then we have Biovores, followed by 1 Gene Stealer brick. This is for a nice alpha strike with the Broodlord. Then you give these guys some dev wounds. So having the super runs to get in the way with this would actually be quite clutch as an Ork player. Then you have a Harrow-Specs, nice cheap monster, 3 Lictors, 2 Maleceptors, Pyovores, Von Ryan Leapers, and a big unit of Zoanthropes, which actually have great profiles into Orks. But Von Ryan Leapers, as they do fight first, they just kind of bounce off most, not most, but good amount of Ork units. Their strength's pretty lacking. Something you'll see on this list is it doesn't have anything to really hold the mid-table. It just wants to delay you from getting to the mid-table with the Gargoyles, and the Gene Stealers are really meant to alpha strike you and kind of break you down. So the fact that he actually can put stuff in transports to be safe, right? So he's not getting anything super important tagged. He has a super runs to really get in the way and take that first initial onslaught. You have obviously multiple options to kill this. Harrow Specs, you have the Gorkanaut to go stomping up the table, and the Battle Wagons to help your Mega Knobs get into position, and a bunch of little units here that your Flash Kids can go toe-to-toe with. Once you break that stealth range, you can start fighting down a Lictor, shooting them, bopping lethals. You actually have a good amount of shots shoot away these Gargoyles, as other Ork lists really don't, especially with the Lootas. Lootas, you want to overwatch all these units that are on here if you can. They're very soft. So I can see how you can tear these things apart, as his unit does have this Dread Mob list, or Dread Mob list, really does have a good combined arms focus when you start to break it down between a big stompy thing running up field, Mega Knob being infantry, and then good support fire between Flash Kits and Lootas. So keep that as we go in mind as we keep going in to these list break. Then of course we have a Chaos Space Marine. I'm going to do this quick because they do have their codex released, and that's going to form new problems for us, but I don't care because we love to get stuck in. So we have a Chaos Lord, Cypher, which gives them an additional CP, a Dark Commune, Lucas the Eternal, which is just a Bleed Fighty Boy, Master of Executions, and a Warpsmith. We got mobs, Legionnaires, Cultists, Predator, Destructors, Chosen, Forge Fiend, Raptors, Venom Crawlers, Plague Marines. As you can see, these are profiles that really get torn up by a bunch of Lootas. They actually a good amount of little infantry in here that are getting wounded on 2s, and a bunch of 3-up armor save vehicles that if you pop bigger shells for bigger gets, ignoring cover, you're bound to pop a Predator Destructor with 1 unit of Lootas with the shock attack gun. Of course, he can re-roll his amount of D6 shots to be quite reliable for that 1 turn that he goes off, and you're really looking at that Luta unit as a one-time kind of thing. And if they survive outside of that, they just doing extra work, right? They're doing homework, they're doing extra credit because they're going to be blowing up from hazardous, and they're quite small. He did put up a fat 20 on that. It seemed like it was a somewhat kind of fun thematic list that he was probably trying out before he got the codex. So it is what it is. Still a good win. Now we'll take a look at his hard matchup, as he did have 2, but this is the one he tied with, and I think most Ork players can understand. Oops, I just clicked him again because I'm silly. Can understand that Sisters of Battle can be quite a difficult matchup for Orks, but as meta as a whole is really like, whoa, here we go. So Sisters are where they're at. So Junith gives a CP, and I actually pulled up some data sheets, that way we can all follow along for what some of these girls do. We have this Triumph of St. Catherine. So she gives multiple bonuses here that she can choose to do 2 of them as long as the unit has those models still alive, as in her actual unit, because I think as she dies they get removed. So we have, they can give lethals, they can give 2 acts of faith, they can give a 6-up feel no pain as auras to anything near them, and they can give better leadership, which actually goes pretty good in tandem with their what she had over here. She had the, what are those boys called that be punching? Boy, I had a brain fart right here. Arcoflagellants, because Arcoflagellants are only leadership 8, and they are 2 wounds with the 4-up feel no pain and volume. So this is actually a tar pit for, let's say, like a Bully Boys unit, but I don't know about a bunch of looters with 2 damage, right? But as for, where did I put my girl Morgan Vol? As for Morgan Vol, She helps units by getting reroll hits and rerolls wounds with her little dreadnought version of things, and she can get up to 3 attacks. So she can be a beat stick with devastating wounds. Of course, you can decide to give yourself 6s if you're near the triumph and put these devastating wounds through. So she's kind of punching the Sisters of Battle getting in here and getting stuck in with their thick leaders. So she does have a meta list, because once you go from Triumphs and Catherine, it's only 1 unit of Battle Sisters, 2 Rhinos, 2 Arcoflagellant units, 2 Castigators, 2 Crusaders. The Castigators of their versions are Lehman Russes with battle cannons, essentially, where they're only 1 AP but damage 3. And then you have the Paragon Warsuits, which to go with Morgan Val. Repentia for more fighting sisters getting stuck in. A Seraphim, 2 Seraphim squads, 3 Seraphim squads to jump down, score secondaries alongside those Crusaders. So there's a lot of units here, and for some orc armies, other lists, they might not like it as much. For all these 100-point Lootas and a Gorkanaut stomping down the field, a big battle wagon, the battle wagon can literally kind of just stand up there to some of the sister lists, as they don't have a ton of meltas. Castigators don't have good AP, therefore it's taking great armor saves against the Castigator. It wants to end up trying to close a distance, and you have stuff to get in kind of a mid-table fight with, especially once you start disembarking the Lootas, we'll say, or coming in from reserve, and you're within 24 inches, you have good volume, especially you're just going to choose sustain here. I'm going to just shoot these girls off the objectives now that they've got there, because I'm standing on the objectives and trying to win. Overwatch units that want to try to get into engagement range with like things that I do have in the mid-table. And so you're picking up sisters here, but they can very much play the game with you, as they will, because of this triumph of St. Catherine, be able to do multiple acts of faith and put some kind of reliable damage into you and still continue to score, because all these Seraphim units are still going around scoring. The Rhinos are still trying to. So there's a bunch of stuff here that you still have to account for, and sisters are no joke no matter what this is. Anybody could have won that game. As you can see, it was a tie, so I'm not going to say much more than that. But the fact that the Dread Mob actually held up to something like that is pretty nice. Zagrat Wartsnaga, would find a home, but the Arcoflagellants probably beat down the super runts when they get close. But as a whole, Sisters of Battle or something, it's hard to account for, as they're not popular, but they're a very strong army. So good job tying there. And that's just something we have to be aware of. And combined force of arms still seems to be working, but keep in mind, these are a lot of, we'll say power armor, because there was a Tyranid list, but there's a good amount of power armor here, and armies that just have a base 3-up armor save. Sorry, click my own boy. So then we have his second hardest matchup, which he actually did end up winning by 1 point, but this was Sons of Sanguinius, so the Blood Angels. I did a difficult orc matchup video that didn't do too well, but in that difficult orc matchup video, while Blood Angels were seen as a bad faction, and I didn't rate them too highly as a whole, I did say Sons of Sanguinius was the exception, because once you start getting that +2 strength on some of these profiles, you start pushing them over the threshold to actually be very damaging to orcs, and very effective into orcs, especially with their weird abilities. So you have 2 captains, Commander Dante, Lamartis, and the Sanguinor. So we know Commander Dante and Lamartis, they're more for fighting and getting stuff more effective, but the Sanguinor is something that's really weird, as he can pretty much heroically intervene from reserves, right? So imagine he's in heaven or in space, and he drops down, and he's like, oh, and then he decides, hey, you have to fight me. He can actually pull away damage from combat armies, which makes this really hard when you're like, I really got to get going right now with my mega knobs. I have to get stuck in. And the Sanguinor is like, haha, you must put all your attacks into me, and if you cannot, you cannot fight. It is like that. So it's a really nice tech piece into other melee armies. We have 2 squads of assault intercessors, 2 impulsors, 2 ball predators, a Death Company dreadnought, Death Company Marines with jump packs. That's for Le Martis. And then we have the Sanguinor with the Sanguinary squad up in here, which is very, very expensive. And even though they do get a 2-up armor save, because you can ignore cover, there's a chance that the Lootas can get in on this if the person doesn't have CP for some reason to do like Armor of Contempt or anything like that. And then only 1 unit of Scout. So I would like to think that the super runs got their way in here. They were able, there's not really too much contesting them in the mid-table. Commander Dante does punch, but it's not like super scary enough to really be like, I don't know if a Gorkanaut can't survive this for 1 turn. And like we said before, these are armies like the Ball Predator, where the Lootas can pick these guys up. You're just, hey, I know that Lootas does pretty good for you. Usually an orc matchup, it can sit there all game. Now it can't. I'm actually going to pick you up instead. So very interesting to see. I love to see that you put against a bunch of power armor and stuff that wants to die to 2-up armor saves, but he did also take out Tyranids. So we're just seeing a trend here of what he knew was in his meta, and it was actually a great call, because I'm sure he's aware of some of these good players too. And he goes, well, if everybody's playing power armor, Lootas do great into power armor. So hey, shout out to him. Let's see what this last matchup was. For the Dread Mob. So we had Adeptus Custodes. Now, This is on the other spectrum where they don't have a 2-up armor save, but in fact they actually do, because they do not have an armor of contempt. Therefore, it feels more like a 3-up armor save against Lootas, since you get to ignore cover, right? And as we'll see, they have the tanks for the Lootas to pop out here too. So we have Alea, because he's playing Talons of the Emperor's Custodes. So shout out to this git for doing it. He must have been doing pretty good to even get this far. So he had Alea, Blade Champion, and Valerian, a Custodian Guard unit, 2 Sister Rhinos, a 3-man unit of Tyraniders, and here we see the Gravis tanks. Now, the Gravis tanks are in fact getting blown up by a Lootas squad. Maybe not super reliably if you get super unlucky just because you're still hitting on 6s, but with the rerolls you very much can end up putting them enough damage into here. What you're really seeing is the rockets and the shock attack gun are doing the most damage to any of these units once you pop bigger shells for bigger gets. And that would feel really great into something like a Cladius Grav tank, which is looking for those battle wagons to hunt them down and blow them up. He does have 2 units of Warden, so the Meganauts have something to go to toe with, and that's where you'll actually appreciate those really high damage punches from the Gorkanaut. He'll come in there and be like, well, you have a 4-up, you have that great feel no pain, but here's 6 damage, pop him on the head, you know. So I love to see that. We have prosecutors, vigilators, witch seekers, and then Kyla Draxis. So she's most likely with that guardian unit that we seen in the beginning, giving them some flamer shots, or I think it's +1 to hit, or he +1 to hit, I believe, also. So it's actually really good combo to put in with your guardian units. So once you got these 2 grav tanks, you can see for 215 points a pop, that's almost a quarter of their army starting to go. And the sisters end up being great targets for Lootas, and because Lootas are so cheap, and everything's here trying to get on the objective as Custodes really want to be there, you can do this a lot of just redundant damage. Just like with the Wardens, you're like, well, I can just chip and chip and chip, and if you pop that feel no pain to my shooting, then you're not getting it to melee and vice versa. So that can actually putting thoughts to the Custodian player where he makes the wrong choice. He could disrespect the Lootas shooting and be like, well, you know, you hit on 6s, and you're like, yeah, but you're standing on that objective. Here you go, a bunch of shots should damage you down, 3 damage rockets coming through everywhere. It becomes awesome. So this guy on his own has figured out the dread mob. So shout out for Martin Hultgren, whoa, for figuring out that dread mob. And Lootas seemed to be the real deal. And we know mathematically they were the real deal of what it was, but people were still wondering, do I just bring 1 unit? I was still not super sure about how many I would bring. I'd say maybe 1, maybe none. And most people were favoring more towards killer cams between all the tier list videos and between all of the Ork Codex breakdowns, even though we knew the math, because we were still thinking in practicality, what can I really do with something that hits on 6s consistently? Well, what you can do is consistently kill stuff that stands on the objective, as every turn of the game someone wants to stand on an objective. And when you have Lootas, you're like, someone's getting this section, someone's getting the angle of fire this turn, and I'm gonna make them rain. I'm gonna make it rain. So shout out to Martin, I appreciate that. Great job, and we hope to see more dread mobs, enthusiasts, and people figure out the list for the dread mob, because the more options that there are for people to be aware of and scared of when they're facing the Orks, the better for us as the Ork community as a whole, because we're like, all right, well, you don't know who's coming. Is it Bully Boys or Dread or Green Tide or Cult of Speed? So War Horde still sneaking back there, hiding around everybody's head. So Dread Mob did great. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!